Dad and Curt, I have a question to ask you about the time that you were both in the service. And Uncle Curt was a cook in the Navy, and you were visiting Dad. Is it the Philippines?
No.
Where were you at?
Where was I at? I was on a ship down in the South Seas.
And Uncle Curt came to visit you.
No. Well,
Tell us the story, Gordy. Tell us.
Go ahead.
you mean we're on tape?
Yeah, we're on tape now.
We stopped at port where Curt was at, in Admiralty Islands, at Manus. And he came aboard ship that I was on. And so he stayed overnight, and we got ready to leave the next day, and he was still sleeping. And he started getting up steam, and we started leaving, and we found out Curt was there, and he had to get off the ship real fast, otherwise he'd have gone on home with me. So,
Yeah, but why would Uncle Curt but tell us the story the day before?
From then on, he was overrated to me.
Uh-huh.
You were overrated.
But that's not all the story. You and Uncle Curt were out the day before and you had a watch.
You know what brother, oldest brother.
Yeah.
When I was living there, and he had neighbors there, and his neighbor's son was in service. I don't know how long, he never did anything, and here I was in just a short time, and I got to be master at the motor pool. Boy, did I catch a lot of heat for that.
Say, Uncle Curt, the night that you almost got shipped off on the wrong ship because you were visiting Gordy,
Huh?
the night that you were visiting Gordy when you were in the service,
Yeah.
and you got on his ship and you fell asleep.
I stayed overnight. He says, why don't you stay overnight?
Yeah.
And what happened before that though? You two.
Were you two out carousing?
Huh?
Were you out carousing?
oh,
Well, that was a
heavens.
long time ago.
He ain't cruising down in the
That's
South
when he gave me the
Pacific.
watch.
He gave you a watch?
Yeah, a brand new Bova. He says, here, look at that watch. I looked at it, he said, you want it? Oh, sure, I'll take it. So we go out and have a tip a couple, and got to be about 1 o'clock at night. And we had a couple of girls.
Ooh.
And he says, you got that watch, Curt? Yeah, I got it right here. He says, we're going to have to hawk it. Before that, I asked him if he had any money. He says, we got all the money we need.
But you spent the money. Oh. Well, do you have any other, like, service stories that you'd like to, about World War II, that either of you?
I went down to visit Leona when they were on Catalina Islands. And we stopped and Art and I and Jim Bowman went out, had a few drinks, and coming back, I was riding a bicycle, and the blame seat come off the bicycle, rolling down the hill, and they thought I'd lost my head.
Yeah, but then you also had some other problems when you were in Catalina Island too.
I was cut out of school in Baltimore. They gave me a Jeep to drive, and I had that all the time.
You and
Good.
you and Uncle Art had another problem when you were in Catalina Island too.
Well, we were coming back towards our apartment and came across this
Experience. And
fighting
they sent me to school.
rooster,
Learn how to
and
have
they
men
grabbed the
put it up
rooster,
and
took
before
and
you
killed
knew
it,
from the bottom
and
of the
Dillion
town.
cooked it up. There's tough
Well,
as
that made
all
a
get
lot of
out.
people mad.
Here it was a prize rooster, and they were out looking for it the next day.
And you ate it. And you ate it.
Well,
Well, speaking of roosters, how about the roosters on the farm, Leona?
come back, he didn't have a scratch on him.
Well, I guess I'm very happy that I got into this family.
Nobody's ever been treated any nicer than I have,
Oh,
really.
that's because you're so sweet.
Oh, yes. Ask Larry.
Ask Larry, is she sweet, Larry?
Sometimes.
So I remember, Leona, can you remember when we were little and we'd come to the farm?
Yes,
And what part did we hate about it the most?
yes.
Do you remember? I mean, we loved it, but what part did we not like?
Yeah, you were good kids, but you didn't like milk
Right.
that came from the cow.
That's right.
You had to have it in a bottle, so I guess Auntie brought down a glass bottle
Yes.
so you could have your milk out of a glass bottle. Then it was okay.
So you tricked us.
Right.
What were you gonna say, Dad?
And we were going in to visit Lennon, the owner, and the family, and we got stuck going in there, and Leonard had to come and pull us out of the ruts. The roads were so bad.
Wow. What about the Armistice Day, that big blizzard? Were any of you caught in that?
Yeah, I remember it.
Tell me. What happened?
Like, boy, that came in so fast, and you were on the farm then, and man alive, we had to lead the cattle up to the water trough to get them to feed, and it was a good thing it was, you know, at that time we had the crops put in, and boy, it was, I can remember that pretty plainly.
What year was that?
Beg pardon?
What year?
1941.
1941.
Yep.
November 11th.
Yeah.
Wait, Curt, where were you
You-
during that storm?
Me?
What's
Curt, the Armistice Day storm.
that? Oh, that was in 40.
Okay. And where were you
I was
doing?
in school.
You were in school?
And we got stuck with a school bus on the way home
Yeah.
on a hill. And he got us out with a rope. We didn't have any overshoes, we didn't have any mittens, we had a jacket on, but and he got us out with a rope trying to pull the bus, the boys. And that didn't work, so he took us across the field. It was night by then. And he took us across the field to this farmhouse where we stayed overnight.
And
I
so
think some of the kids had stayed there 3 days. But I went home the next day because there was nobody home to milk the cows. Dad was down in Wisconsin doing something.
wow. So you from school went to stay somewhere and no one knew where you were then?
Huh?
No one knew where you were?
Sure they knew where I was.
They-
In school.
They thought you were in the school.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
They didn't know that we camped in that farmhouse, I don't think.
Yeah.
So Grace was taking care of the house then?
Huh?
Grace took care of the
Yeah, she was
house?
home then. I didn't know she was even home.
Well,
But she got
Grace,
somebody to milk the cow.
wasn't Grace and Lil both school teachers? Weren't they? Didn't they teach school?
Grace was teaching school west of Forston in Benton County. And she took me to school at Sunday afternoon to St. Cloud because we're going to the college here. Then when she drove home, it was just raining then. And then during the night, and then it turned to a real blizzard. So
Wow. So how old would Joyce have been then?
she was probably staying down at Auntie's, I believe.
How old was she?
Oh,
Little. She'd have been little.
She was 5 when her
5?
mother died.
So she would have been,
she was in the first
she would have
grade.
been 6 because her birthday was in July.
Yeah, okay.
So she would have been 6 at the time of the storm.
Yeah.
But I remember about that storm, they run out of food. And but when we went to bed, she put all the boys on one side, all the girls on the other. About every 15, 20 minutes, she'd be around with a flashlight to see if anybody moved. So you had to scurry pretty fast.
So maybe you can all tell us a little bit. How did you meet Ruth?
Huh?
How did you meet Ruth?
Oh, in a dance hall,
In Malacca?
yeah.
Okay. Was it love at first sight?
What?
Love at first sight?
I suppose, yeah.
How did you meet Grace?
I'll tell you, my brother lived out in Bloomington and had neighbor Sam Reinhardt, and Grace was out visiting at Reinhardt's because she and Doris were close friends, and my brother and Sam were having I figured a wiener roast or a party anyhow, and I was at his place and Grace was at the neighbors, and that was how we met there. We had wiener roast together with the two neighbors there.
Did you
So,
pursue her?
What?
Did you pursue her?
Did I propose to her?
No,
Did you pursue her? Go after
Chase.
her?
Well,
After a fashion.
I think so. I can tell by the look on your face. So, Leona, how did you meet Len?
Oh, he had been working down in southern Minnesota for $10 a month in his board and room, and he came home to visit his folks, I guess, and my folks and a bunch of the neighbors always had card parties together, and one time we had a party and Leonard happened to be there. I don't know how he happened to come, but he did. And we kind of got acquainted.
Thought this is it.
So that was the way it went.
And they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
Okay, Gordy,
So,
it's your
kinda
turn.
got
How did you
acquainted.
meet,
Well, I come up to visit relatives up in Malacca, and I went over to
You were Ray
Ray
and
and
Millie.
Millie's, and sitting there talking. So then I got up ready to leave. They said, "No, you stay here for dinner." I said, "No." So well, I finally said I would. And Laverne and her folks came up there to visit and have Sunday dinner. So I stayed and got to meet Laverne and her folks. And it happened to be Laverne's mother was a sister to Millie. And Ray was my dad's brother. So I met Laverne then, and we started dating after 10 days or so, and that was it.
and she was in the waves, right?
She was home. End of the service.
End of the service, okay, okay.
And
So
I-
Mother, explain how the Reinhardts came to be friends.
What's that?
She's asking Leona how the Reinhardts came to be friends.
They lived next
Well,
door to
they-
Auntie.
To Auntie.
Princeton.
Oh,
Well,
Lindemans did.
Lindemans were neighbors of John and Tilda when they lived in Princeton. And they were very good friends, so, yeah.
And Doris was a Lindeman.
Yeah, Doris was a Lindeman,
yeah.
yeah. And Sam, I don't know how they met, but anyway, they did.
does anybody have a good
Sam is
Grace
nice.
story? A good story about Grace? Tell us about Grace.
I'll tell you about Grace.
Okay, tell us about Grace, Shelley.
Okay, they used to, well, you know, Uncle Paul and Auntie Grace used to take care of me a lot when I was growing up. And one time I had a lifesaver stuck in my throat. I don't know how old I was, like 6 or 7. And she literally picked me up by my feet and shook me to get it out. And it worked.
She saved your life.
She saved my life. She did. But I mean, you wouldn't think of her as somebody who would do something like that. She didn't use a Heimlich maneuver. She didn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She just picked me up and like shook me. It was great. Thank you, Auntie Grace.
I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I was joking.
Wow.
Anyway.
Does anybody have a story about Ruth? A story about Ruth? Give us a good story about Auntie Ruth. Not too
A
personal.
good wife, wasn't she?
Huh?
She was a good wife.
Well, horseback's pretty good.
She was,
One
she,
morning, she used to put my breakfast cereal on the table, put out a bowl and a spoon, and make the coffee. One morning I got up and she was frying eggs. And I said, eggs? You don't have to rub it in.
Does anybody have a good story about Bonnie?
Do you have a good story about Auntie Bonnie?
Oh,
Dad?
Maddie has one.
Wait, never mind.
Okay.
Dad, do you have a good story about Bonnie?
No, I can't say.
Dad, tell about Bonnie's chicken. When Auntie Bonnie had her pet chicken.
Well, that chicken,
Boy,
Uh-huh.
it's just a chicken.
what, that was 14 years old, that chicken.
I think it
Oh my
died at
gosh.
18, Gordy.
Huh?
I think it died at 18.
Did it?
Yeah, they gave it away to one party. They gave it away to Corcoran's, and they moved, so they gave it to her brother, and he kept it till it died.
Oh,
And I think it was 18 when it died.
You know, I heard something once about you, Curt, and an outhouse.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't know nothing about that.
Oh, come on, tell it, Curt, come on. Maybe Diana or Chris would like to tell it.
I don't know it.
I don't,
I think I might know it then.
okay.
Uncle Curt, tell the story.
Come on, I'll help you.
Do it.
Tell it.
You
Tell the story.
You better start. Let him.
Okay, well, my recollection from my mom, she said that it was Halloween or something, and the boys were out having fun, and they tipped over somebody's outhouse. Is this a memory now, Curt?
And I lost my wallet.
In the outhouse.
When you talk about that, my uncle lived in New Prague there, they had the marble shop,
Yeah.
and just before dark they moved the outhouse forward. And the kids came to tip it over.
That's awful.
You know what happened.
Yes.
Well, Dad, did you get your wallet back?
Yeah, but I gave him $10 so he could fix his toilet.
That's a good story.
Dad and Curt, were all your siblings born at home or in the hospital? Were all your,
I was born at home.
were all,
Curt was.
okay, so were the,
Bonnie was
okay, was Auntie Joyce, was she
in
born
the
in the
St.
hospital?
Cloud.
Okay, so was Auntie Joyce the only one born in the hospital then?
Yep.
Okay.
So did your dad deliver the babies?
No. There was, a doctor came out to deliver me.
Okay.
Dr. Stocking was his name. But I don't know about Curt now.
We don't
But he
either.
was born at home because we had to get out of the house.
Now, did you,
Joyce was the same way. Not Joyce, but Bonnie was. She was born at home.
so how many kids were in the house next to Auntie Leona's? There were
5.
5, and then Joyce was born in the other house that you lived in?
Yeah, west
Okay.
of town.
All right, so there were 5 kids in that 2-room house. Wow.
That's why we had to move out of there. There was enough room.
That's how come we had 2 rooms. There were so many kids.
Well, when Leonard was born, his mother went into convulsions at 7 months, and it took 7 men to get her to Princeton because there was a doctor that had a big enough house that he kind of had a hospital type room, and she delivered Leonard, and when the doctor saw him, he knew he'd never live, so he was not even recorded. So when he was ready for Social Security, we had a very hard time because it was lucky that Leonard's sister Tilda was still living and she could verify it because she was 10 years older or better, and we had some school things, report cards, and the baptism certificate. Otherwise, we had nothing. And I remember his mother saying that they had him on a formula of some type, and he just was not doing well, and when she brought him home, she had him on the oven door because that was the only way she could keep him warm enough, because he was only 7 months.
What did he weigh?
While he was not doing well, she just decided cow's milk or nothing, live or die, she said, and she put him on cow's milk, and he came out of it.
He became a dairy farmer.
And then he became a dairy farmer, that's funny.
Now, this is 1911, so it's very close to 100 years ago.
And he didn't weigh 2 pounds.
What did he weigh?
Under 2 pounds.
Under
is
2
all we know.
pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And
Imagine that.
Mother always said that when Grandma told her when she brought him home in a shoebox, and she could still get her wedding ring up to his elbow.
Oh my God.
Tiny.
Wow.
So speaking of the house back on the farm, tell about how you and Dad made it through the Armistice Day snowstorm.
Oh, that was, we had this little shed barn with cows and chickens in one side, I guess, and cows in the other. Of course, no electricity. We got the Armistice snowstorm, and the drifts were like that high in places, and we had an outside well that was about from here to Curt's building out there from the barn, and Leonard would pump water in 2 milk buckets, carry it over the snow and the wind blowing half of it out before he got to the barn, and I'd try to feed the cattle the water, and of course, you know, when cows are thirsty, they just go around and around, and if they got 2 sips out of a pailful, it was lucky, I'm sure. And
Meanwhile,
when we had a haystack right at the end of the barn, and even in that horrible wind, the fork was practically empty of hay by the time we could get it into the barn. It was such hard work. I'll never know how we ever did it, but we did it.
and went back to the 2-room house that the Johnsons used to live in.
One thing about the Armistice Day storm, we had to hold on to the person ahead of you so you couldn't get lost, but one gal fainted and we had to carry her. It was
Well, the difference.
40 deer hunters, duck hunters got killed in that storm.
40?
4,900 stuck
They
here.
were down in the river bottoms.
49 died.
Well, it was duck hunters out there in the swamps and
Yeah.
couldn't make it out. Right.
I don't know if this story is true, maybe Leona knows that when Grandpa and Grandma were out in Montana, Grandpa was off someplace working, and Mother's sister died. Mother was 7 years old, and she got her ready for burial. Now, I don't know if it's right.
When she was 7.
She was 3 years old when she got the stomach flu, and she died. And Grandma Lee always wanted to go back out to visit that grave site, and of course none of us had money enough to even take her out there, or time enough to go, which you didn't do, you know, when you didn't have a car that went very fast. That's the one thing I always regret, that we couldn't get her out there to visit that daughter's grave.
I don't know if she just buried out on a hill someplace. Or...
Well, she was in Will's book. She says that she was buried at Beach, North Dakota.
Well,
I
they
didn't know
actually
that
lived
for
in
sure either.
North Dakota. The Montana came from Grandpa saying that he had to turn around the plow but that was in Montana, when he turned at the end of the field.
Yeah, if they lived in Glendive area, and the horses in the
Say, Curt and Gordie might be the good ones to answer this. Tell us about how your dad was in the hospital, and then your mom went to see him, and she ended up dying. And she was like 42 years old or something?
40.
40.
All right.
Can you tell us that story?
All right. My dad got sick in February, and he was home from work, and he finally started feeling better, so he went back out on the mail route, and we got stuck because there was a lot of snow at that time too, and we finally got the snowmobile dug out so we could finish the trip on the mail route. All right, then the next day or so, he got back into the hospital. He got into the hospital in St. Cloud. And I took mother over there on Monday and Tuesday, I think it was. And the next day she said, you gotta go back to school. So I said, okay. So I went back to school that day. And she rode with Art Nelson and somebody else, and went over to see Dad. That is when Mother dropped dead outside the hospital. And then when we got home from school and we got to ward, we couldn't believe it because we figured it made a mistake.
That it was your dad.
And Lillian, she was out teaching school at Grove City, and somehow or another they got a hold of her, and she was able to get into Elk River, and Art went down to pick her up.
And then did Lil take care of all of you? Did Lil then come back, or did Grace come back and take care of all the kids?
Grace,
Grace took care of all the kids.
Yep.
So she like quit her job to take care of you, or
Huh?
did Grace quit her job to take care of you, or was she?
I don't know what happened.
She was
Well,
going to
going
teacher's
school, I
college.
think, wasn't she?
St.
yeah,
Cloud.
she was teaching school and had to go back, so Dad got a woman by the name of Amanda Skog, and she came and stayed with us and did cooking and that, I guess.
Well, I remember the day she left because I stayed home from school. Any excuse, I stayed home from school. Anyway, it was kind of raining and snowing. And she made me 2 baked potatoes for dinner, and then she walked, I don't know where she went to pick up a ride, but she walked away from the house, I remember that.
That was the last time you saw her.
Yeah.
And that was the day before you were gonna get married, or 2 days before?
Oh, was that during your wedding
Yeah,
time?
we were gonna be married that weekend and she died on Thursday, I think, or something. So we just didn't get married until 3 weeks later or something like that. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Have we done enough, or do you
When
guys?
Gordy had mentioned the snowmobile, can you describe the snowmobile? Because to the next generation down, they're going to think a Skidoo or an Arctic Cat.
The snowmobile.
Describe the snowmobile that Grandpa used.
Yeah?
What was it?
It was a Model A made out of, with a double trap on it, with a truck rear end and skis on the front. But it didn't work very good, so they had one ski in front, so they split that ski and put 2 of them on. And then you had to have a clearance between the wheel and the sleigh, so if there wasn't much snow, you could drive with the wheels. But it was hard to turn with the ski. That's what I learned to drive on, was that old snowmobile.
And then in the summer, did you take the tracks off and use it as a truck or not?
Yeah,
Okay.
not a truck, because it was all enclosed. But we drove it around. I remember he traded I don't know what he paid for it, but he traded that white horse in on it.
I don't know, but it came with one ski, like you
Right,
said.
yeah.
And then he bought a set with 2 skis in front,
Yeah,
and also the tracks were about 8 inches, treads. But when he got it, there was treads about 12 inches, 18 inches wide on it.
I don't remember that.
Well, speaking of things that have changed, so you were all born in the 1920s, correct? Everybody here born in the 1920s, basically. What is the biggest change that you like the most in today's world? What do you think is, I'm so glad this happened, you know, compared to how it used to be?
Well, you can't comprehend the difference, that's all I got to say.
Can you help me?
Huh?
Help me.
Well, you didn't have lights, you didn't have a bathroom,
Yeah, that's right.
you had one butcher knife, my mother had one butcher knife,
That's the
one paring knife, and enough silverware to feed. You know, I don't know how much silverware she had, but there was nothing, you know.
And no toilet paper, right?
Huh?
No toilet paper.
Sears catalog.
Yeah, Sears
No
Roebuck
catalog.
And peach
But I
cream.
remember when Bonnie,
But it used to be muddy clothes dashing from the house to that
I
outhouse.
bet. Okay, tell us.
I remember when Bonnie cut her lip. I was, I don't know why, I think I must have been about 4. And I was in the house babysitter, sitting there, and she crawled up on a cupboard and got a crock down and it broke and she cut her lip right here. Well, I ran along and got mother, she was cleaning her barn or something.
I remember one time mother used to have the cookie jar up on top of the cupboard. And my brother silly wanted some cookies. He got up there and tipped the whole darn works over.
Oh, when we first moved down, from Chase Brook down to the west of Forston, I was 6 years old then, and in the wintertime, Helen Arvidsson from up around Grandpa Lee's came down to help with the chores and stuff, because Dad usually got home late with the sleigh and carrying mail, and somebody had to help Mother with the milking and that. And Helen Arvidsson took me on a little sled and was pulling me along, and she flipped the sled, and I fell over on a pile of horse turds. and I broke my collarbone.
Oh.
And they didn't do anything. So I was laid there crying and stuff. And a couple of days later, they took me to the doctor. And it already started setting it, and he had to break that loose again. And then, of course, then they put a brace on it. But
Well, anyway,
Yes.
where was I?
Bonnie cut her lip on the crock.
Anyway, mother come in and she wrapped Bonnie up, and no telephone, no car. She started down the road with me too, and a car come along, picked her up, and he took her to the doctor.
So you were just walking down the road,
Just walking down the road, yeah.
hoping someone would come along?
What?
Hoping that someone would come
Yeah,
along?
right.
Were you at the farm then or in Forest?
We're west of Forston.
So how, did you go to Sunnyside School ever?
just me.
Now, this was west of Forston,
Yeah.
yeah.
But-
No, I never did go to Sunnyside School. I
See-
wasn't that old.
Curt was only 2 years old when we moved west of Forston.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you and Grace and Lil went to Sunnyside.
Yeah, I went 3 months at Sunnyside.
And I remember when they built that road, they built it with horses. And they'd plow the ditches with a hand plow, remember that? By our house when they built that road?
Oh, yeah. All horse and,
Yeah. You carried water for them and you got a dime a day?
Wow.
The road, one by Forreston or the one by the,
By force.
oh, when we moved down there, then they started upgrading Highway 23 from being a gravel road. They put in blacktopping in there, and they used just a cold asphalt. They'd have it in there and they'd spray asphalt on a pile of sand, then they'd grade it in and pack it down. Well, in the springtime, all it did is bubbled up from the frost, and cars would get stuck, and they'd come and where the closest farm, so they'd come and have Dad pull them out. Yeah.
When I started working, I worked for 50 cents a day.
50 cents a day.
Oh, yeah. Cutting wood all day long in the woods for that.
Yeah. And then,
And we worked for a guy there, I could tell you his name, but anyhow, but you missed a whole hour, so they would take 10 cents off.
Wow.
I could tell you the guy's name to this day.
What was it, Paul?
What?
What was his
Joe
name?
Fonick.
Really? You didn't like him?
Fonick.
I know, did you like him?
Yeah, Joe was his first name.
I don't think you liked them all.
15, I got a job unloading coal out of a boxcar,
You were loading coal?
unloading boxcars of coal.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there was either 20 or 40 ton in there. And we got $2 a day for a 10-hour day.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
So what's everybody's favorite story about Grandpa Lee or Grandma Lee or both?
Well, Grandpa liked to fish, I know that.
Oh, see, we were going up fishing one time, Grandpa Lee, and I don't know if Curt was with too. But we were going up north, and we got up to
North Lake?
and we had a flat tire. And so getting out of the car, we had the bottle underneath the seat, and I put the seat up to get out, you know, and busted a whiskey bottle.
Oh my gosh. How long would it take to get from Minneapolis to Aiken back then?
Oh heavens,
But you lived in,
about 3 hours, I would say.
No.
Oh yeah.
It takes about 3 hours today.
No, but that was Forreston,
Oh,
not.
from
Oh,
Forreston. Okay, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
So if there was any one thing that was when you were all young and the times were so different that you wish was still like that in today's world, what would it be?
It'd
Nothing?
be having Christmas and having to light the candles with a match.
Wow.
About 10 minutes and you take and hit to shut them on.
And then you had to blow them out
Yeah.
in 10 minutes. But you had that 10 minutes. Okay,
Well, there was a lot of fire started on them cones.
I bet.
Yes, there was.
Do you miss anything about those old days, Paul?
No, I don't think so.
How about you, Leona? Do you miss anything?
Well, I think being neighborly would be the main thing I miss,
Well,
really, because
that's part of it.
there's
too.
all kinds of people now across the road from me, and I wouldn't know them if I saw them.
Or one thing, we didn't have the ways to travel those days that
No.
we have now, and so people didn't get together like they do now.
Right.
Well, I got
Yeah.
good
We
neighbors.
didn't have radios or
I know my
TV.
neighbors.
and-
That's
Yeah.
important,
You
Kurt,
know.
isn't it?
Yeah. So what did you do for fun? If there's no TV, no...
But
No.
I can recall though, when we take a team and a sleigh in the winter time and a whole bunch would get together, go to somebody's house and have a party,
Yeah?
sit and play cards.
play
Dance?
cards or dance,
Dance? Okay.
you know,
But
have a
it-
victrola and play music and
But if you were just at home every night and okay, it's getting late, what, did you just read or did you just...
sit and read or play cards.
Okay.
You listen
My
to the
sister
radio.
and I
Okay.
got to be super Chinese checkers players.
All right.
Or sort beans.
Slurp beans?
Get the black beans that weren't any good out of the way.
Cooking
Yeah.
beans.
Just keep the good beans.
And how do you slurp beans?
Sort.
Oh, sort.
Sort. That's
Turn your hearing aid up, Barb.
Say, Curt, tell them about the time we were out working out west in the harvest field?
Huh?
And you said you'd run out of money?
Oh, yeah, well,
That was easy to do.
we had, I went with George Klein. I think you know him. And we came home and for a weekend, because it was so wet out there, you couldn't thrash, so we went back and we had a nickel between us. And we bought a candy bar and split it.
Oh, boy.
We slept in a haystack. The next day we tried to join the Marines, but they kind of just laughed at us.
So where out west did you go?
Holloway, Minnesota.
Where?
We're thinking Montana
Holloway.
or someplace. So funny. Well, and I know you were all friends when you were all married, and you used to like have parties together, right? I mean, you and Laverne, and I mean, you all did it. Grace and you and
You got together.
Ruth and you all. I remember as a child where you would always be getting together and you'd be partying into the night and.
I remember when, was it, Gene and Helen got married, they rented a yellow cabin on Borden Lake there.
No.
And they had good memories of that.
Well, I think we
Is it-
stayed us kids stayed at Grandpa and Grandma Cornelius's.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay. When
Did we?
Jane and Helen got
We
married.
weren't, no.
I think we stayed at your farm when Jean and Helen got married. Did we? Kathy and I?
When Gene and Helen got married, and we were driving around, and Cornelius stopped us.
Police.
He was a highway patrolman, Ruth's dad,
Yeah?
and he stopped us and,
Stop who?
oh, we were drinking and that.
No, who was in the car besides you and Mother?
Who's we?
Oh, that was Grace and Paul, I think. Curt and Ruth.
Probably Bonnie and Bob.
Yeah. Was Bonnie and Bob in the car too?
That was a big car.
Yes.
I remember getting in the car and the cigarette lighter was gone and I pushed the key into the cigarette lighter and it sparked and I said, oh hell, wrong key.
What happened? What did Mr. Cornelius do then, Dad?
Oh, I don't know.
Did he give you a ticket?
No.
No tickets. Well, that was kind.
Helps to be related.
Building out from the lake, and he came by and he chewed me out because I didn't get decent tires. Literally.
Say, Kurt, tell me something about my dad. You and my dad going fishing and.
Oh,
I bet.
some of that I better not tell you.
How about you, Dad?
Who was a
Can you
fisher
tell
when
stories
she-
about you and Uncle Bob
Grace.
fishing?
Yeah.
Boy, she used to take that
About
boat
Bob, my
out
dad?
for a little ways and
Going fishing.
she
Did you fish with my
fished for
dad?
supper.
You weren't a fisherman.
I said, fish for
I
supper.
didn't, I didn't fish too much with Bob.
You do any
It was
fishing?
more Kurt, I think.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
working
so.
at the rest area through the summertime and come home in the evening and then we fish for supper. Where did they come from? Well, I went out here and caught them. Well, she used to be able to clean those sunfish and crappies, boy, I'll tell you, zip, zip.
I got, I called a friend the other night, and he's in the hospital. And I was talking to Dorothy, and I was telling her about Diane teaching school, postgraduates. And she said, wow, she must have been adopted.
You hung out with Uncle Bob an awful lot.
Well, should we wind this up? I think maybe. Is this good?
Do you have an,
Nothing.
Okay.
I rode the ship back down from Baltimore down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I heard that Bonnie was having a baby, so I went downtown and I bought her a layette. I don't know how much I paid for it, but it was an old suitcase full of stuff. And I sent it to her. Of course, then I got held up that night and beaten up and hit and broke my eye. And I rode the ship back up to Baltimore, and I laid in the hospital 4 months with it.
Wow.
And that's when I kind of thought I would quit, or I went home to visit, and I decided to go back and ship out once more. So I went out, made a trip over with a load of cattle over to France. And that's where I met Orleans. Orleans from Forreston. His brother was in First World War, and he married a French woman and stayed over there then. And he started a photography studio, and when the Germans took over, they were on their way of trying to get out. They got down to the Spanish border, and they put them in concentration camps. And that's when I got over there with a load of cattle. We stopped at Rouen, and I took a train ride to Paris to visit them. So I got to tour of the city pretty good. And that's the way I made my last trip.
What year was that?
That was in '46.
So which baby was
That
that?
would have been
I
Kathy in
I quit
46.
that ship on the 23rd of July, 1946. Then
I remember one thing about Gordy. Me and Gordy were walking down the street in St. Paul, and we walked by a hardware store. And radios were hard to get in them days. There was a radio sitting in a window. And Gordy walks in, he says, "Is that radio for sale in the window?" The guy says, "Yeah." He says, "Wrap it up." You know, it's Bonnie.
Oh. That was nice.
Didn't ask the price or nothing, just wrap it up.
Good memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to know about the Grandpa Lee and Grandma Lee's?
Sure.
So mother, tell about them.
Grandpa
and Grandma Lee.
What?
Grandpa and Grandma Lee.
Share about them. Yes.
Did they change their name
Yes.
when they came over from?
Yeah, well, they came over, yeah, what year was it? 18?
95.
95?
They got married on the boat, right?
They did, I don't know.
Oh.
Nobody ever really knew if they were married before or after they got on the boat.
Maybe they weren't married.
They got married. I think they
The
got
Bible says they got married.
Yeah, the Bible
Oh, okay.
had got something about their, I don't know
How
about
old
their
is that
marriage,
Bible?
but
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I don't know, I can't read it, so.
It's the one
Anyway,
on the side page.
whatever, anyhow, they lived next to us for, I don't know how many years. I suppose 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, probably longer than that.
Anyhow, whatever.
Hmm.
Anyhow, I used to, one thing I really never ever did make Norwegian dishes, you know, I'm German, so anyhow, I wanted to learn how to make lefse because Grandma Lee just really made good lefse. Well, so one day she said, "Well, come up and I'll make lefse." So she did, but she just put all the stuff in. She never told me a thing, and made it. And of course, I just plain had to guess what went into it, I guess. I kinda sorta make it now, but.
Well, you're a fabulous cook.
Yeah,
Yes, she is.
Yes, so I'm sure it was just fine.
Right.
Auntie Leona, how did you learn how to make lutefisk?
What?
How did you learn how to make lutefisk?
Yeah.
How did you learn how to make lutefisk?
Oh. Trial and error, I guess. It smelled kinda bad the first few times I tried.
I remember when we went to Ted and John's and,
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing I
I mean, the
remember
house
about
there-
Grandpa, I was home on leave, and I'd go out at night and I'd come in and go to bed, and pretty late sometimes, and I'd sleep till 9, 10 o'clock, and Grandpa would come in and shake me with a shot of whiskey in his hand, and I'd have to take a shot. He always had a shot of whiskey in the morning. I don't know if he ever
How
did
old
it
were you?
when you knew him, but when I stayed with him, he had that shot of whiskey. That's all he drank was that shot of whiskey in the morning.
One shot in the morning. Instead of coffee, it was a shot of whiskey.
No, just a shot of whiskey.
Some of them put that shot of whiskey in the coffee.
No, he didn't just put it in the coffee. He
No.
drank it down.
And how old were you when he was making you
Well, I was
drink it?
17, I guess.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was really a great guy. If we'd have just asked
But-
questions, we would have known so much more.
Oh, that's why we're doing
We
this.
tried that too, but it didn't work out.
Hey, say, Curt,
I can remember he come out with that glass of wine. Before I knew it, I was under the table.
hey, Curt, when Grandpa Lee moved down to Forston, right, he lived in that little house north of, on the river.
Yeah, right in front of the dump.
Right across from the creamery, I remember.
He lived in another one before that,
Yeah, just
Oh, that other, okay.
on the other side of the river.
his little stucco house, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
All right, now, what year was that? What year was that? That was before the war.
Yeah,
Well, Grandma Lee was still living when they lived there, in that house. So that had to be before 44.
she was alive in the little house across from the creamery.
Right,
It must have been,
yeah.
Oh, 1940, maybe when they moved on, I don't remember.
Well, we were married in 40 and they lived up on the farm when we were married.
42 in there.
Well, I had a couple of jumpers that left in Grandpa's yard in Forston. He gave them to the scrap drive. Which is all right. But it didn't run
Got
anyway.
him out the yard, didn't he?
So that had to be about 42.
Huh?
I don't remember them living there.
In Forston?
Yeah,
Well, they lived there quite a while.
I mean, in that north of Forston, in that little stucco house.
Okay.
They lived there when they first moved down off the farm.
Yeah,
But then they moved and bought that house right across from the creamery.
see, yeah. I never knew them living on that, so it must have been in 42 then.
I don't know.
Well, okay, I think we're gonna wind this up, and, but I just, if I just can say how much we love all of you, we all do, and what great aunts and uncles you've been for us. Absolutely.
Appreciate you too.
Thank you.
Then
Thank
when
you.
Grandpa died, I bought the house. I don't know from whom, but I paid $350 for it. I don't know if Auntie got the money or who got the money. And I used to keep my beer down the well.
Kind of a theme here.
Yeah. Well, the one story I remember Auntie telling that was like your whiskey story with Grandpa. Auntie and Ellen were very popular apparently when they were young women. And she was about 16 and had been out dancing and came home really late. So Grandpa went out, because she wasn't getting up to milk cows, he went out and pumped a fresh pail of water, put the ladder up to her window and threw it in through the screen on it.
Oh my.
And considering how bad Lee's hearts all are, It's a miracle she survived that one. How old was Auntie when she had her heart surgery?
I don't know.
Oh, look at
I know
Dinah.
when we heard, Grandpa Lee said he wished she had not had that big surgery. She would remember that when she had such high blood pressure that they rerouted the blood vessels going up to down in her legs in Rochester. And I remember Grandpa Lee saying, oh, I wish she hadn't done that because that was a mistake. But she came out of it, but it was a long, long
Didn't
time
she
before she...
go in for cancer too? It had a rib removed to get into the cancer?
Yeah. Yeah, when she had cancer at the end, Mom took care of her for a
No,
while
but
too.
her rib came out when they did her heart.
Pardon me?
Her ribs came out when they did her heart.
Oh, okay.
Because she always had to wear a tight corset to hold herself together.
Okay.
I didn't remember that.
I didn't know she had cancer.
Oh, she died of cancer.
Sit down for
Is
that.
that right?
Very, very bad. Oh, she suffered so much.
These young ladies over here just
I get a picture taken
That
again.
looks, break the camera.
That's his camera. He can afford another one if he's freaking.
What a great afternoon.
We just get everything individually and then I'll try to go and stop shopping.
Are y'all done?
Yeah, we're done.
Not quite.
Marvin,
Close.
thank you.
That was a
Very
great
nice
idea.
of you
It's
to
just
do that.
great. It was so fun to hear you all.